Hallo, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khush amdeed, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, ishpata.
Bakhair agale, ni hao, chure shumme, washmale, Ohio gunzaimes, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal, hale shuma chatore, ahlan wasalan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, suavia, bali kere, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTV World. We over here at PTV World Studios, me and Shiza, we welcome you to World this morning. We hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that everybody in 46 different countries is ready to kickstart their day with us. Hello Shiza, how are you doing today?
Doing so great, thank you so much for asking. How about you? And especially I feel like now that we've come out of a weekend straight, the energies definitely are lifted.
Exactly.
In my case, I mean in yours, they're never compromised, mashallah.
I mean, it's just that you really have to push harder some days, and then there are days when it comes in naturally. Earlier this morning, when I was about to wake up, and Alhamdulillah, I did catch up on my sleep quite well over the weekend.
Good.
I was lucky enough, then was out with family, so I had a great weekend, Alhamdulillah, with friends as well. But not just that, but today when it was time for me to, kind of get out of the bed, I woke up by myself, otherwise usually it's my mother, Alhamdulillah, who wakes me up as well. And then I was like, okay, let me take a good look at the phone, what time it is.
Yeah.
And so the time was pretty much over the time where I actually have to get up. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think has forgotten to call me today. But I was up and then I was like, should I go to work? Should I not go to work? And then I was like, why shouldn't I go to work? Because Allah has given me this opportunity to create a difference and make sure that, I'm going to kind of share something relatively new and informative for people out there. This is my responsibility. Allah has given it to me and I am going to fulfill it 100%, and that's the pledge I want everybody to make to themselves.
Well, that is a beautiful message to begin the day with, and I would love to hop on to this pledge as well. And I've also I've always actually spoken about this to you and to my audiences as well, to have this kind of approach, and especially to your co-anchor having this kind of approach sort of leaves an effect on you as well. So there are days when I feel like I can't do it and I really have to pull it along, where I do sort of seek my energies from you, and my inspiration.
Thank you very much, and everybody does it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you should definitely surround yourself with such people. And I think this is the moment we also take to realize how important self-prioritization is, right? So you are thinking about your goals, you're thinking about all the things you need to achieve, and eventually how they're going to benefit you, your mental health, your physical health, and that is how the way it should be.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's just a very small thing. Just this weekend, a group of my friends arranged a belated birthday for me.
Wow.
So it was a very small event, and I feel like they don't even realize how much of a big thing it was.
Wow.
But it really made my entire weekend. It made my entire month probably, or maybe the year as well. So I feel like you really need to be surrounded with the right kind of
Exactly.
people.
Thank you very much for saying that. And there's one more point, ladies and gentlemen, and that is that since you just said that that your mental well-being and that your physical well-being is very important. So on a Saturday, Shiza, this is a very interesting story.
Okay.
But I want everybody to kind of do what I did in that situation. So I was at a concert. The music was really loud and I felt like as if my heart was thumping. And I didn't really feel very comfortable about it. And then while I started to kind of think about it, I started to overthink as well. And then at that point of time, I kind of remembered what my father told me, that no matter what happens, if you think that you're not feeling okay, the first thing you need to do is go to an emergency room and make sure that you get yourself tested.
Did you?
And this is exactly what I did. But before I actually went to the hospital, my friends kind of convinced me that, hey, you know what, everything's going to be all right. You do not have to go to the hospital. You look fine. Everything's perfect. And I was like, it's better to take my precaution than rather to be sorry about it as well. So that's something which I did. Got myself tested. Everything came out clear. And I was a happy man once again. So please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have 0.1% of discretion on a point that you might not be feeling okay, I think that the first thing you need to do is get to the hospital as soon as possible. Get yourself tested, and it's not going to cost you much as well, but it's going to save your life.
Well, I'm really glad you did that, and I'm really glad that in that particular moment your brain was working in the right direction as well. Because
I was like, I'm getting late. I need to be at the hospital.
You did the right thing, and I'm so happy you're okay. And I'm happier about the fact that at that moment you were surrounded by the right kind of people too, which helped you. And speaking of friends, Shazad.
Right kind of people.
Right kind of people as well. And friends, today I really want to take this moment to celebrate one of my earliest friends ever since I arrived in this world.
First ever friend you had.
First ever friend, yes. And till date, she is the purest friend I have, of course. And definitely, I feel like the sort of feelings or the unconditional love or the care that comes from this particular person, I have never seen it coming from anyone else. I mean, it's just so natural. I think it's divine as well.
Wow.
If I haven't already made it clear, I'm talking about my best friend, my very lovely mom, who happens to be, well, the prettiest woman on the planet and the best as well. Happy birthday, Mrs. Hashmi.
Happy birthday, Miss Jasmine. It's wonderful to, you know, have you as the mother of my wonderful co-host as well. And all of those values, all of those cultural norms you've taught your beautiful daughter. I think every single day we kind of get to know that the kind of nurturing you have disseminated towards your children is something which everybody kind of needs to follow as well. And Shiza is a wonderful person, and this definitely speaks about the kind of a person you are as well. A very happy Hatch Day, Auntie Ji. And I think that today is going to be that day when Shiza is going to sing a birthday song for you, because she never sang a birthday song for anybody. So today is the day. So let's sing it for Jasmine Auntie. Let's go ahead.
Let's go.
Happy birthday to you. May you have many more. Happy birthday, dear Jasmine Auntie. Happy Hatch Day to you.
She must be so happy.
And she sent us a lot of mangoes as well. So, you know, once again, happy Hatch Day, Auntie.
Yes, happy, I was going to say Mother's Day, but happy birthday to you. And Shazad, you know, when we talk about mothers and a nurturing space, of course, it's the home that everything begins at, right?
It's the habitat, right?
Yeah, and home is such a sacred place, actually, to begin with. And generally speaking, if we aren't talking about our individual identities, this planet, this entire place where we exist in, is our home.
Exactly.
And it is sacred to us.
True.
And now that for thousands of years we are, you know, inhabiting this very planet as well, I feel like it's our responsibility to make sure it stays in the good condition for the generations to come. Exactly. We are definitely at a tipping point of climate crisis as well. Some of the things are definitely reversible, but there are things we can still control. And this is what we need to talk about today. What day is it?
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, today actually happens to be World Habitat Day. And you know, while we speak about habitat, ladies and gentlemen, the theme this year around is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world.
Yes.
And there's a reason behind it. The reason is that, you know, the urban cities kind of produce the emissions of the CO2 emissions as well, the greenhouse effect, all of these things which kind of destroy the habitat. The 70% of the destroying part is actually taking place from your urban cities and towns as well. So I think there's a need for everybody to come together and think about everybody else, because we might be able to do or kind of produce or you know, do kind of come across an action which will actually help other species to kind of coexist as well. But are we even thinking about it? Imagine that for all of those other species which are there who really need that kind of nature to be around them to survive, we are killing them slowly and gradually.
Yes.
How can we make it better for everybody to coexist is something we will be talking about today. But first, a quick report. Go ahead, take a look, and once you guys will come back, we have the most amazing guests over here to talk about World Habitat Day. Let's do this. Good morning.
Every creature on Earth has a right of having a safe place to live in. In 1985, UN General Assembly passed a resolution and declared the first Monday of October as World Habitat Day. The main purpose of this day is to highlight the importance of the state of human settlements and the basic rights of all to adequate shelter. The theme of this year's World Habitat Day is Accelerating Urban Action for a Carbon-Free World. It calls attention to the fact that 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions are being produced by cities. We owe the place where we live in. National, regional, local governments and organizations need to work together to create sustainable, carbon-neutral, inclusive cities and towns. This day reminds us that we are responsible for the habitat of future generations. In Pakistan, more than 50% of the population of major cities lives in slums and squatter settlements. With the help of UN Habitat and other international organizations, Pakistan government is taking actions for improving the lives of vulnerable communities. Ministry of Climate Change has signed different agreements with international organizations to work for the betterment of habitat. Different seminars and conferences are being held to celebrate the Habitat Day worldwide.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, so on World Habitat Day, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by an environmentalist over here in the studios, and he happens to be Dr. Ejaz Ahmed Saab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum, subha bakhair, and welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here, and especially on this very important day, Habitat Day. which is celebrated throughout the world today.
Exactly. Thank you
It's
very
our
much, sir,
pleasure,
for
sir.
joining us. And alongside Dr. Ijaz Ahmed, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky. So, what we have done is that we actually want to talk about us, ourselves, because we have been very irresponsible for the last a lot of decades. And now it's about time that we kind of raise awareness about it as well.
Yeah.
But we wanted somebody to talk about all of those other species which coexist with humans as well. So, what kind of problems do they come across? Because they, God forbid, if we are not going to think about it, our entire ecosystem will get disturbed.
Yes,
And God
definitely.
forbid, if it gets disturbed, we will get disturbed too as well. So we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by another environmentalist from WWF, and he happens to be Mr. Muhammad Wasim. Hello, assalamu alaikum, sabah bakhair, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. It's wonderful to have you, and your shirt looks awesome today. Thank you very much. So very quickly, Dr. Saab, we'll get started with you. World Habitat Day. We have put out the stats out there as well that 70% of these gas emissions and greenhouse effects and all of these things take place because of the urbanization. And when we speak about urbanization, we have so many town developers, we have so much of infrastructure coming up, we have so many high-rise buildings coming up. How do you think that we're destroying the very habitat we live in?
Well, actually, over a period of time, if we talk about Pakistan only, the urbanization has increased tremendously, significant increase. I mean, like we used to say that 70 to 30 ratio, 70% rural population and 30% urban population. And now it is increasing with the passage of time, 45%. Some people say that it's around 50% urban population has grown. And we are actually, there is no urban planning to say. So a result is that we are losing very productive lands. The cities are being developed on areas which were very good for agriculture production. So which can lead into some of the issues related to food security. But then the urban development and urban expansion has also its own problems. We compromise on so many different things because of this urban development. For example, I mean, like conversion of green area into concrete.
True.
One of the biggest, and ultimately, I mean, like there are so many issues which are linked to that. For example, water recharge, watershed management, increase in greenhouse gases, because when people live, they have to commute, they use transportation, and there is no public transport available. I'm talking in the context of Pakistan. Even if we talk about Islamabad only, so we don't have any other than one metro, which is not enough for the whole, the population of Islamabad. So the issues has increased tremendously to that extent that 75% of our brown issues, to say, are related to urban population or urban development. Whether it is transportation, and transportation leads into the air pollution, because the 42% of the air pollution is basically the contribution of vehicular emission. So that is actually quite alarming. We have seen the phenomena of smog, and it is coming in a few months.
It has been here for the last 5-6 years as well.
Exactly.
But sir, in addition to that, since you spoke about it, obviously when we talk about agricultural waste, when we talk about pesticides, it's not that it's only the urban contribution, but it is obviously the agricultural contribution where the energy is going to waste. Then there's water scarcity. So speaking about the habitat, how do you think that in days to come or in decades to come, people will be able to exist without water? We still have, on this planet, we have countries where there's no water, and people are only allowed to kind of take a shower after every second day. Imagine. So I can even share the names of the countries as well where the problem is at a high rise as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the good thing about this whole scenario is that people, government, society they have become very conscious about taking action. I mean, like you know, there this UNFCCC, there are conventions, there are agreements between different governments that they are going to reduce greenhouse gases. And I think that is a positive sign, in a sense that this alarming situation has resulted into some possible planning to reduce what is happening, and ultimately that will have impact, although it is going to take time. For example, this water recharge, if we talk about only water, it's not that simple and easy. It is going to take time. I always give example of, say, trees with plantation. But you know, one tree grows up and it becomes mature in 50 years or 60 years time, and it is cut in a one minute's time, even less than that. So in order to go back to the same situation to get the benefit, we have to wait for another 50 to 60 years.
Exactly.
So that is, I think, something that we cannot afford because time is running short and the development is progressing. Sustainable development is one of the answer to these issues, that we need development, but then it has to be intelligent, it has to be wise enough to look into, you know, like these issues, whether it is water, whether it is energy, whether it is you know, like air.
You know, I'm sorry, I didn't mention it. Then there's ozone depletion as well. Then there's climate change. Then there's global warming.
I mean, you just name it. I mean, like, I think the program time is not enough to.
But sir, you know, actually, I'm going to pick up a point where you said that we are wasting productive or useful land as well. And just, I think this was few days back, I was reading that by 2030, productive land, the size of the United Kingdom will be lost, and we cannot recover it for the benefit of humankind. And this is just one thing we're looking at, and of course this will be a chain of events, unfortunately. So Mr. Wasim, moving on to you, I want you to sort of explain in terms of Pakistan, under the theme of this year, accelerating urban action, because being a developing country, on a daily basis we are definitely urbanizing. No matter what sector you look at, we are trying to do that. What do you think Pakistan stands at in terms of sustainable development? Are we doing that?
Yeah, it's very important right now. The present government, we see that it's taking seriously the different environment related issues, and this is the time right now we think about these things, because we lose and lost so many species and habitats, natural habitats which we have previously in Pakistan as well as in other parts of the world.
Can you please name some as well?
Yeah, in Pakistan, the Indian pangolin, that's a recent, it's reached to the endangered species category, and it was present in Islamabad, it was present in most of the part of the Pakistan, but unfortunately it's poaching, it's illegal trade, and habitat destruction that we are going to lose it. Another species, you can say that previously we lost the tigers, the lion, the elephants we have, but unfortunately now we don't have in Pakistan. So these are the species which we are losing actually, and continuously we are losing. So right now this is the right time that we, whenever we are talking about, when we are discussing and thinking about the society's development, the construction, we need to think about the wildlife corridors. We need to think about the sustainable infrastructure development. These are the important things we need to consider whenever we are taking anywhere the developmental strategies or initiatives. Yeah.
Wonderful. And sir, in addition to that, there's one more thing, and I'm going to remind everybody of this documentary which I watched, and I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. So somewhere in Australia there was this forest where obviously the ecosystem existed, but then eventually they took out the foxes probably, or I think it was the wolves which they took out, you know, who actually kind of were very usable for the ecosystem as well. So what they witnessed was that the other animals started to die, the plants started to die, just because the wolves weren't around in that forest as well. And as soon as they put back the wolves, you know, that the entire ecosystem came back in place and everything was living once again. Now imagine that with all of these emissions, how many species have we kind of displaced? Because, you know, where Sir said, Dr. Saab said that, you know, we're replacing the green with the concrete. So that green is actually a house or a home to a lot of other species, which we might not even see with our very own eye. So how many species do you think that we have displaced just because of the fact that we wanted concrete over greenery?
Yeah, if we discuss and talk about the ecological relationship of different species within the ecosystem. That's a very important segment. That's basically make the ecosystem rich, and from these their interaction and their connection, that's help us. In the context of the species lost, which I mentioned in the previous
Elephants,
question,
tigers, pangolins.
but right now, if we are talking about the concrete jungle, and if the concrete jungle exists, then I don't think so that's anywhere in the concrete floors we can support wild animals to run or to walk on these floors. So it's very hard for these to exist on these floors. So we need to think about that the concrete jungles didn't support our ecosystem. So we need to keep a green belt wherever possible. And the second thing is that because like the example which you mentioned, that the wolves, they change the rivers patterns. That was actually the video that was shoot in the Canada and the American. So that actually that was one of the species, and that's when they started shifting from one ecosystem to another side. So the rivers change their dimensions, and they start moving towards that side because of the change in the herbivores, the carnivores, the vegetation cover that was changed totally. So yes, in Pakistan also we can found these things, because unfortunately our studies on the focus on the ecological studies, that is very limited. And now in recent years this studies, these are the subject to the universities they started. Yeah,
Exactly.
I would like to add normally when we talk about species, we talk about the like big animals, but I think there are
Bacteria even.
Bacteria. There are very important species like amphibians, all these frogs, etc. I mean, there is a link nature has established, and there is a role which different species, whether it's a bacteria, some insect, amphibian or snake, they play. One of the reason it is, I mean, like I've read a few reports of dengue virus, dengue mosquito, actually the
In
cause
Lahore.
is
in Twin
everywhere.
Cities
Yeah,
also,
in Islamabad is actually because of the lack of habitat for frogs. Frogs used to eat these larvae in millions on regular basis, but then since
We've been using
don't
them
have
in a laboratory, sir, dissection
That's
and whatnot.
right.
Yeah.
well, that was not like a big impact, because when we actually reduce their habitat, when we like destroy the habitat, so they don't find any place to breed. Then there is another example of honeybees. These bees, they play very important role in pollination. Not only exactly from flowers, from one flower to another, and the productivity of crops increase because of that. In 2005 earthquake in AJK, there were many there are 3 or 4 different species which were found naturally in Pakistan. They actually vanished. So there were programs to actually build their population again. So, but coming back to urban issues, I think we have to see these linkages with the nature as well. So once we don't see these linkages, then ultimate loss is ours.
True.
Absolutely, and since we're talking about habitat day, ladies and gentlemen, it's not, definitely we're short on time, and for the sake of argument, we're focusing on some areas, but this particular day has a lot of dimensions. We are definitely not forgetting the species living underwater as well, and how they have the impact on, well, the ones living out of water as well, because every species or every environment has a separate habitat. But under the theme of this year, we are right now focusing on humans as well, and how they are sort of creating the menace and also being impacted by the menace too. So this day, or the theme this day, also sorts of talks about the inadequate living shelters or the conditions that humans live in, and it speaks that in terms of poverty and inequality, 20.23% of the entire global population is right now living in inadequate shelters.
Or displaced, probably.
Yes, displaced as well.
Yes.
There are so many reasons that can, this can be a reason. Yes, so sorry about my slip of tongue as well. What do you think are some of the reasons? How is poverty and inequality related to this particular day, sir?
Well, I think generally when we talk about urban development, we neglect that, I mean, like most of the time, we only think about elites.
Yeah.
So we think about big roads. We think about vehicles, cars.
Material.
Yeah, we don't think about general public, which actually suffers a lot.
Yes.
So ultimately, what happens is that the quality of their life deteriorates, whether it's the living condition, whether it is their transportation. I mean, like transportation is one of the major factors, housing and transportation, when you talk about the urban development. So there is hardly, again, I would say that there is hardly any mechanism where a poor person can move from one place to another for the job, for whatever, like earning he or she has to make. As compared to the elites, where we always think about, like cutting the margalas or cutting the very pristine
Anything which gets in the way.
Yes, exactly. So our main focus remains on providing facilities to those who have already have better life.
True.
And ultimately what happens is that we make compromises for the poor people, and they don't get water, enough water, they don't get enough health facilities, they don't get enough food, they don't get enough jobs. So ultimately they become, like deprived from all these facilities.
So you're saying to facilitate a certain group, we are actually compromising the habitat of a large number of people.
Yes, of course, we are.
It's so
I mean, like,
Thank you very much for putting it that way as well, sir. But very quickly towards the end of our conversation, there's one more thing which I wanted to ask, and that is that in the West, so where credit's due, it's due. In the West, I think what they've done is that they have gone through such massive awareness campaigns that they know how to coexist. Now imagine, just last night I actually watched a video where there was this gentleman who happens to be somewhere in USA, and he was purchasing deer warning whistles for his car. So he was like that, during the winter's time, the deer population increases, and usually what happens is that they come across on the roads or towards the houses and get hit by a car. So imagine that the friendly coexistence has gone to a place where humans are putting on deer warning whistles onto their cars. And we have seen so many videos where the deer is actually going to enter somebody else's house, or a moose or a snake probably for that reason, and they coexist no matter what happens. Over here, sir, since I've grown in Islamabad for alhamdulillah the last 34 years, if they're going to see wild boars, the next day they are going to plan to shoot them.
Yeah.
If they're going to see those, I think,
Snakes.
what do we call them, sir, with those spikes?
Porcupine.
If we see porcupines, we want to ram them with our cars. God forbid. This is the kind of mentality we have over here. We see a lizard, the women start shouting. We have a smaller gun, and then we start shooting. We see cockroaches, no matter. Obviously, nobody wants a cockroach in their house, but they have to exist no matter what happens. How do you think that we come across such smart awareness campaigns that people kind of get to know that which animal you really need to be scared of and which animals you really do not need to, or which species, the right word would be, not to be scared of as well, so that we can coexist? Because towards the end of the day, it is about coexistence, because if coexistence is not going to take place, the entire ecosystem will get disturbed. Sir, please.
Yeah, it is a very important point you highlighted, that even the black bears in the high mountains in Pakistan. Similarly, about the common leopards and other species which we have in Pakistan. Yes, we need to highlight this coexistence importance with the communities, and the WWF Pakistan, from which I am belonging, it's since 1970s it's working on environmental education with different localities in Pakistan under different project activities. Yes, we all need to do these things, even and especially the government agencies. The wildlife department, they mostly working on the other related issues, and yes, the awareness is very important and key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for saying that, sir. But eventually, one small thing, and that is that since I've gotten the opportunity today, so I'm not going to miss out on this one, and that is that I have seen an increasing trend in people kind of keeping pets, some exotic animals, may it be tigers, may it be lions, may it be, any other
Birds
cheetah,
even.
or birds, or, whatever sort of exotic animal Pakistanis want to have them at their houses. That's the definition of coexistence for them. But imagine what are we doing to those animals? We are caging them, and why do you think WWF is not taking any action that there shouldn't be any lions or cheetahs or any exotic animal at your house? Rather, they should be out there in the free so that they can probably reproduce and, have more of their own species. Why is WWF not taking any action?
Yeah, actually, WWF Pakistan is a non-government organization.
Okay.
It's actually the
But
mandate
raise your
of
voice.
the, yeah, we are raising our voices. Even right now, against the big cats, keeping with the local.
It has become a status symbol.
Yeah, we also submitted our petition to the government
Okay.
against that, and yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's giving
And-
interviews to
and-
TV channels as well. And there's one thing which I do not get, and that is that how can those TV channels be so stupid in kind of airing those interviews with big cats?
Yeah.
I mean, this is nothing which is going to interest anybody just because somebody has got a pet, and that too as a lion. I mean, please make sure, people, that you have some insanity in your, rather sanity, and get rid of this insanity that you want a lion so that you can be on television. Please don't do that.
Imagine that. And Shahzad, I actually do remember someone telling me when I was a kid. So one of the people we knew, kept a lion, and I was so sort of interested, and I was like, Baba, I want a lion. And he was like, I don't think we can manage. But then he told me the story that because it was a cub back then, it was a baby, they used to feed him kokomo or biscuits or cookies. I was like, it's not, it's diet. And I was genuinely disturbed even at that time.
Exactly. And Shiza, not just that, imagine that people who actually have lions as their pets in their houses are very smarter and healthier rather than we have in the zoos. I mean, in Islamabad Zoo, I'm sorry to say, the sad state of affair, they got their hands onto 2 lions, and both of them died just because somebody else was having that mutton or beef or whatever it was.
Imagine that. But ladies and gentlemen, right now we're definitely headed to a short break. We were talking about World Habitat Day and how to preserve it on our individual end as well. Yes, definitely, and how to coexist. I feel like we're leaving this segment on a sadder note, so I really have to move out to a short break. When we come back, inshallah, we will have something happening and exciting for you.
Exactly, because when we speak about World Habitat Day, ladies and gentlemen, we really need to have to kind of be more focused about our existence. And these days, when we talk about a pandemic, if you're not vaccinated, our existence is truly in danger. Let's talk about that.
Okay, good morning. Stay tuned.
All right, people, thank you very much for staying tuned and welcome back to everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. As of now, I think it's about time that we kind of speak about a high achiever who's making sure that the very existence of humans is not going to be endangered because of this very pandemic which exists amongst us.
Absolutely. And Shazad, to think about the fact that at this young age, lately this generation is actually thinking so cognizantly, if that's the right word, making the right choices and being informed as well. It sort of makes my heart happy that they have all the facilities in terms of internet, the reach, their access to information and everything. And then there are some who's making the right use of it. So this particular girl, who is now going to be in conversation with us, of course, is, mashallah, yes, a high achiever, like you did already say. But she's actually paying attention to and campaigning for a lot of issues that need to be spoken about, and especially to be advocated by someone as young as she is. I think it's going to create an impact.
And she, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be an ambassador for the Dutch health department as well. You know, her billboards are all over the place where Shiza comes from as well, which is why I think I will let Shiza kind of introduce her as well and make sure that you use that language which you learned over there as well.
Okay, so I feel like it's a lot of pressure and I'm not going to do good, but the meisje that sit here, okay, correct me if I'm wrong as well. The meisje that sit here is hele, well, she's genius. En vandaag ze gaat praten over wat zij heeft gedaan voor Pakistanis, as well as for people that woon, for mensen that woont in Netherlands as well. She happens to be Fajr Khan, a high achiever that we've already mentioned. Hello Fajr, welcome. Goedemorgen.
Goedemorgen, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited
to be here. Did you judge my Dutch?
It was amazing, honestly, especially if you haven't been there in a while. Your accent was pretty good.
Goedemorgen. Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. So, Fajr, first things first, obviously you happen to be an ambassador for the Dutch Health Department, which I believe is a great achievement for you.
Thank you so much.
Your billboards are all over in the Netherlands as well, and you're promoting that everybody needs to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
How did you end up doing that?
That's a long story. Well, I moved to Pakistan very recently because I had lived in Amsterdam in the Netherlands from when I was 2 years old to when I was 16.
Wonderful.
So I moved to Pakistan last year, and that was obviously in the midst of the pandemic, coronavirus was raging, and everyone was in chaos.
Yeah.
Then I went back to Amsterdam for the summer vacation, and the exact day when I went there, it turned out that vaccinations opened for 12 to 18 years old. So I was like, yes, this is my shot, you know. I was really upset that I wasn't able to get vaccinated, but I was really glad I was able to go and get my Pfizer vaccine. So I was researching a bit about vaccines in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam, and then I read an article from the Volkskrant, that's like the national newspaper, about how immigrant communities are not getting vaccinated. As a whole, it's like 80% of the Dutch population is getting vaccinated, but when you look at immigrant communities from Pakistan, Morocco, Turkey, so especially Turkey, there's very low numbers of vaccination rates.
Was it by choice?
It was by choice. Everyone has the vaccines available for them in the Netherlands because of the free healthcare system and, you know, insurance and everything.
But they were just scared.
Yes, it's 100%. It was all conspiracy theories. You know, there's a lot of governmental mistrust, which is completely understandable when you're a minority as well, you know, and then always like colonialism and all of that kind of stuff. It can be really difficult to trust the government too.
So then there was you, right?
Yes.
And then, what did you do to kind of promote?
So when I read this, it was really shocking to me because we're like also immigrants, right? So I was like, well, something needs to be done about this. And in the Netherlands, you can just email the mayor. You can just send a letter to the mayor.
And they respond.
They do respond. That is the big difference. So I was like, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. And I emailed the mayor, and she ended up responded, which is amazing, the mayor of Amsterdam. And they connected me with the Dutch Public Health Department, the GGD. And then it was a really, I was really nervous to go, but I had a meeting at their headquarters with the coronavirus prevention team.
Wow.
And that experience was really kind of like, you know, I learned a lot from that experience because I didn't learn only about like the issues that were going on in terms of like conspiracy theories, but how do you talk to somebody who, you know, has this mindset of vaccines are dangerous, there's microchips, they're trying to track me. How do you talk to these people? You don't start saying, oh, this is wrong, you're dumb, you know, this doesn't make any sense. You take an approach of logic. That's what they were trying to tell me, that you kind of explain to them why it doesn't make sense, why they would be doing that. And that's
exactly. And in addition to that, I think that, you know, for half of the people I've met, you know, who are not now my friends because they didn't get themselves vaccinated.
I mean,
imagine.
Understandable.
You know, this is something I said. I was like, you know, I do not want to be you know, in relation with you
100%.
because of the fact that, you know, I have to go back home to my family and I cannot miss them. And I want everybody to do so. But imagine that every time they gave me this logic that they'll be tracking us, I was like, who are you?
What-
Why
what
would they
does-
track you? Why do you think that
Genuinely,
you're
why
this
do they
important to the
care?
government
And
anyway?
can I just mention something over here? Of
Yeah.
course, I'm not definitely talking about or endorsing tracking or any such idea. But just the fact that there can be a national database.
Yep.
You guys try to understand if you do this, then you are, I'm not saying they're going to inject something in it, but you being registered and, you know, just sort of creating, everyone is on paper. So if the smallest of the crime happens around you, or God forbid to your family members, and then you go out
Yep.
looking for the criminal,
Yep.
there are right now chances you'll never find them. But this way, I mean, at least we will have a database and we can match quickly the DNA for wherever we want, because we will have the list
Exactly.
of all the
One
people
simple
who got
thing, Shiza, and that is that I'm sorry that I'll be putting you under the spot, but this is something I want you to share with our audiences.
Yeah.
So I will give you an argument that why I do not want to get vaccinated, and then you have to give me a counter argument that,
Yes.
okay, you know,
Okay,
that
let's see
this
how
is
I
something,
do.
okay,
Let's do
that's your
that.
narrative, and you have to
Okay.
change my narrative, all
Yeah.
right? So imagine we live in a country where 1 rupee Disprin is not for free, but imagine a 12,000 rupee vaccine is for free. Why should I
Without
get
it.
vaccinated?
What's not for free?
Disprin.
A Disprin or a Panadol, you know, a small capsule which will help me.
But the vaccine is
yeah,
for
yeah.
free.
But the vaccine is for free, and that might cost quite a lot. So imagine that a 1 rupee tablet is not for free, but a 12,000 rupee or a 15 or 20,000 rupee vaccine is for free. Why should I get it when?
Well, the government's biggest priority is curbing this pandemic, right? And they
Yeah.
have to put their money and their resources into what's the most important thing. You know, Panadol medicines are extremely important, but that's kind of a long-term medicine use. Something like the pandemic that sprung about so quickly and it's affecting people all around the world. It's this huge thing, you know? So they have to put all of their health resources into curbing that.
Exactly.
And that's why, you know, the only way all countries are going to be safe is if everybody gets vaccinated.
Exactly. And I think there's one more point which I would love to add over here, and
Yeah.
that is that, you know, just because everybody's getting COVID positive, God forbid, there's more pressure on the hospitals as well. So for all
Definitely.
these other diseases which exist, you know, the doctors are not able to kind of treat them as well. So we really need to treat everybody else. So please make sure, while you can lessen the burden, please make sure that you do that.
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
And ladies and gentlemen, I feel like we're really short on time, but this wonder kid over here has actually a lot of feathers in her hat too. So very quickly, talking about again one of them. Girl Up is one of the things that you're heading over here in Pakistan. Let us know
Yes.
about it.
And you even met Yasmin Rashid Saiba as well.
Yes, I do. Okay, I'll start with the Girl
Yeah.
Up
Okay.
part. So, with my friend Anya Khan, we co founded Girl Up Pakistan, which is the first chapter of the United Nations Girl Up campaign.
Wonderful.
Nice.
And it focuses on empowering girls to become leaders and also fighting for gender equality.
Wonderful.
And it's the first chapter, which we were really surprised about because we thought, oh, we'll just do a regional chapter of like Girl Up Punjab or something. And we went to the registered list of chapters, and there was not a single one in all of Pakistan.
Oh.
And considering Pakistan's low ranking in terms of like the safety of women and girls, we were so shocked. So that's why we decided to, you know, found
Where
a
are
national
we in the
chapter.
index, by the way?
I believe we're third on the Reuters index, third or second in terms of violence. It's very bad.
It
So
is
that's
indeed.
why we're trying to, you know, through these small initiatives, coming together as a community, we're
Alright.
trying to alleviate these issues.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Yasmin
That's
Rashid
nice.
Saiba?
And you,
Yes. So after I came from Amsterdam back to Pakistan, I met with her because obviously there's a lot of vaccine issues in Pakistan as well. There's a lot of misinformation here. So I went to meet with her, and I also went with my mother, and we talked about these rapid antigen testing kits
Yeah.
because you know education has been really impacted in this pandemic.
True.
Every time one person tests positive, the entire class has to quarantine. You know, I'm in my last year of school. It's been pretty horrible. But if we do this rapid antigen testing technique, it's where you can just, you know, do a self-test if
Yeah.
you have symptoms, and then you can quarantine at home. If everyone does that, everyone in like a school or a class does that twice a week, that's what's done in the Netherlands as
True.
well, it can prevent, you know, schools from constantly closing all the time and, you know, help us continue our education as well.
Exactly, that's wonderful. But you know,
Definitely.
I mean, obviously the economics is very different
Yes.
from Netherlands and Pakistan, and
100%.
having a test kit at
Yeah.
home that twice a week, I think, gets difficult.
Definitely.
Not just that. There's one more thing which I kind of wanted to talk about as well, and that is that, you know, since 2019, ever since the pandemic broke out, I think all of these laboratories kind of wanted to make a lot of money. Imagine that
Definitely.
a
Of
test which
course.
should
It's
have
all
actually
commercial.
costed 2,500 or 3,000 rupees, it costs 9,000, 10,000 rupees to even to a
Exactly.
person who only earns 15,000, 16,000 a month. I mean, imagine how can they get themselves tested. So which is why that a majority is actually left out, because they really do not believe in the system.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is, obviously, if the vaccines are there, I mean, we have Ms. Fajr over here with us who's advocating that everybody needs to get themselves tested. There's one more important aspect, and that is that I happen to know 2 or 3 of my people, you know, who I'm not friends with anymore, I've said
Yes.
that, had made fake certificates of them being vaccinated, which I believe was the most horrible thing I've ever come across, that how can people be in such a denial where they can be of risk to their family, and not just to their family, friends, and everybody who surrounds them.
Yeah.
What kind of scrutiny do you think that the government needs to undertake, where they kind of get to know that who's coming up with a fake certificate of vaccination, and then people who really do have the advantage because they're vaccinated?
You know, in a lot of ways, it is inevitable because of how tech savvy people have become. Even in the Netherlands, we have these QR codes, and you show these at restaurants and stuff to get entry. Even there, people, you know, have been using their computers to create fake QR codes. So and people are getting arrested there. That is,
go on.
That's one good thing that I think they're doing. They're, you know, but they're promoting that they're arresting these people. That is completely wrong. That's a really big part. They should be doing that here as well. And like in terms of the certificates, I know they use like paper certificates here. QR codes can work, but unfortunately, what can we really do? There's always going to be these tech savvy people. So I think intervention is really important. Like communicating why it's important to get vaccinated, why it's going to hurt you and your family and the people around you. That's where we should be focusing on.
Exactly. And just in addition to that, I think that we really need to have a standard operating procedure in these terms as well, because the text message which Nadra sends you from that very own number, I think only that message should actually be verified as that you are vaccinated as well. Because in days to come, ladies and gentlemen, you won't be able to go onto your motorways, you won't be able to get your fuel, you won't be able to get into cinemas, restaurants, or wherever you want to go.
Yeah,
so I think your life's pretty much going to be over if you do not get vaccinated. So please make sure that you do get vaccinated so that everybody around you is safe. We got ourselves vaccinated. It's been more than 6 months. We are healthy, safer, stronger, and better.
Yes. Absolutely. Fajr, towards the end, I want you to quickly give out sort of a message to especially the younger generation so that they can convince their families to go get vaccinated and how, well, safe it is. This is your camera. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed? A lot of young people also don't want to get vaccinated because they're like, oh, I'll be safe. I won't be sick. You know, I won't be harmed by, like, if I get COVID. But the truth is, when you get COVID, there can be so many long-term side effects. There can be concentration issues. I know friends of mine who still don't know how to, like, they can't feel their taste buds anymore.
Yes, or smell.
They can't smell either. It's so dangerous. And also, you're impacting other people's grandparents, other people's parents. So it's really important to get vaccinated, not for yourself only, but for your community too.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
Thank
you very much, Fajr, for being with us. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, she just does not only happen to have been advocating to get vaccinated, but she's a high achiever as well. She's been a topper in Netherlands, and she's been a topper in Pakistan as well. Have won several awards to herself. But very quickly towards the end, I hope that each and every Pakistani out there knows why we are wearing a pink ribbon, because it's Pinktober. It's Breast Awareness Month. Please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, it's treatable 100% if you get it figured out in time as well. So please make sure that you go to your doctor, just visit them after every 6 months and get your entire body tested. God forbid if there's a problem, it will be resolved and you will be around your family for a longer period of time with a healthier life.
And we will definitely, in the coming week, have an entire show dedicated to talk about just this as well.
On the 6th.
On the 6th, okay, let's do that, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any queries, feedback, make sure to write to us on our social media pages. One more thing, this is for all the businesses out there. This is for all the outdoor spaces that need to be open. Stop looking for certificates. Make sure that the client that is in front of you messages 1166 in front of you, so that the impromptu message is actually a verification or tantamount of them getting vaccinated, or if they have gotten vaccinated as well. Till the next time, take care. You can catch the repeat of this show at midnight, inshallah. And all the messages you can write to us on our social media pages with the name of Well This Morning. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And before we actually head out, very quickly, because with the latest updates, we will have Ms. Taiba and Mr. Farooq on the news desk and on the hot seats as well. Please make sure to stay tuned. Now, 1, 2, 3. Good morning.
Take care.
Thank you very much.